This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, January the 10th, 2023, episode 417. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your weekly source for the latest information in and around the video game industry, with our little sprinkle of common sense political commentary in there as well. You can visit our website, infectionpodcast.com. If you want to check me out, you can give me a follow over on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig, or visit my website, nickcraig.com. You can also check out my daily antics with my podcast, Wilmington's Morning News. You can find that online in your favorite podcast app or at nickcraig.com as well. As I throw my mouse across my desk for some unbeknownst reason, joining me as he does each and every week is Brian with an I, Aldridge. Brian, good afternoon, sir. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great and got my new computer all hooked up. Everything, a new motherboard, new memory, new CPU, a new water cooler because...
Before you go any further,
Yes.
You were running an AMD FX series processor from like what, 2013 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
You got a phenomenal run out of it. Yeah, absolutely. And we were part of that lawsuit too. We sued AMD and got.
We got some money back too.
I have the check.
So
I found it the other day. I was going through I have a little metal lunchbox of paperwork, and I had an $18 check from some AMD class action lawsuit.
So I mean, the thing kept my room warm during the winter,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the thing is that thing was some issue was causing it to randomly shut down, and then one day, I don't know if it was the motherboard or what, but the thing just kept shutting down and then wouldn't turn back on, wouldn't get past the BIOS. So
I had an issue.
I was like, yeah, it's time to get a new one.
With my FX series back in the day, I had two motherboard problems where I had capacitors on the motherboard pop, because it was just running so hot, and I couldn't cool it down. So that's great. Welcome to the
I think
AMD
this thing runs a lot cooler.
Ryzen series.
So yeah, and this is with the Ryzen 7 or 9. I mean, the Ryzen 9. So it's a nice. I got the AM5 because I figured that way later, if I want to, I don't know if this is the bottom end of the AM5, but I got an AM5. So if later I wanted to just throw in a new CPU, it's the newer chipset. I could put a higher end CPU that currently is $1,000+ just for the chip, $2,000 for the chips. I could throw one of those in later and get a nice CPU upgrade at that point, instead of going with the top end of the AM4s.
Yeah.
So
excellent.
Kind of thinking ahead since I like to hold on to them for a long time, as you can tell. Now, we were talking before the show. A video card is now becoming apparent that for me to run Unreal Engine, I need a new video card.
I'll tell you what, I made a grave mistake. I took advice. Our friend Sean has not led us in many wrong directions, but I think Sean led me a little bit astray back when I built my computer. He encouraged me to get as not bottom tier, but as low of a PSU as possible, because he's like, you don't need a 700 or 800 watts PSU in your computer. It doesn't make sense. And now I believe I'm going to be SOL because I think I have a 500 watt PSU. And I'm not sure that I'll be able to run a 30,000 series NVIDIA card on that. So I have to do a little bit of a power calculation and do a PSU swap.
I've got a little adapter in there, but even like this, the new CPU has these. It's got 8
pins.
It's got multiple.
It's 16 pins.
Yeah. So actually, mine does 8 plus 4. So
8 plus 4, okay.
So I'll use part of these, but I have one in there that is one I found on another server I have here, and I was able to pull it to get it all working. But I ordered one of these so I could have one that actually runs. I have a Platinum, so I do the opposite of what Sean said. I went with a Platinum power supply that's rated to last forever, and has a huge warranty to where I could.
Now, let me be clear. I did get an 80 plus gold. I did get a high end
so you
PSU,
got a decent one.
I got a nice PSU.
But the wattage is what you're going to run into. See, I went with the 750 watt.
That's what I should have done. I think I went with the 550.
But because I was running minimum of 4 hard drives plus everything else back when I was doing my RAID. No, was it 5 hard drives when I was doing my RAID 1+0, my RAID 10? So I had that, which sets me right in line for getting a better video card. So I'm all ready to go on that.
These are
but the Platinum, because I figured it would. Yeah, I figured it would continue working, because I was constantly. If you get a cheap power supply, you're constantly switching them out. And when the power supply goes bad, you risk frying really expensive equipment. So what I tell people is get the wattage you need, but get a good power supply,
gold or platinum,
brand quality, so that you don't run into issues. Yeah. So, anyways, if you want to find me, you can find me at Brian Aldridge on Getter, Parlor, Truth Social, whatever ones that are still around anymore. Who knows? Or at Boise Computer on Twitter. If you want to check out my blog, biteoftech.com. And of course, if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, you can check out our Discord server, which on the upper right-hand side, click in there. It's a free app. You can use it on a phone, even in a web browser. You don't even have to install anything if you don't want to. And in there, we have a news channel. So if there's possibly a news topic that you think we should be covering that's relevant to the show, just jump in there and put a link, and we'll review that before the live show starts. We also have our ARC servers that are running, 11 of those, and our Conan Exile server. So if you're interested in playing either one of those, we've got a bunch of free servers to access, but the links to connect to those are inside of our Discord, and other different channels if you want to just hang out and chat and also get a hold of us. If you want to watch the live show, just do that through Twitch or YouTube. And then we have the podcast forums at the lower right-hand side, which once the show's completed, Nick uploads a copy of that and then posts the show notes. And so you can't watch live. You'll have to do that in one of the video forms. But if you are listening to it, that means the show notes are on there, and you can watch or listen inside of there and click various links that we refer to throughout the live show. So maybe there's source material, maybe there's a video that we played that you want to be able to see, and you're listening, you maybe low bandwidth. We have some viewers and listeners that are low bandwidth. They have limits on their bandwidth that they can access. And so if you want to listen to the show but then catch a video, that's a perfect way to kind of supplement what you're listening to. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do that through the support tab up top or infectionpodcast.com/support.
I did a little bit while you were doing that there. I went on my Amazon just to figure out exactly what I ordered. And it's not as bad as I thought. I have a 650 watt power supply. That's kind of
bottom of the line for...
No, that'll run a 30
wattage.
That'll run a 3060 or 3070 without a problem. Those cards only need
you're running. Well, it depends what CPU. What you have a decent CPU, so you're not having to swap that out.
No. So, nevertheless, not as bad as. Sorry, Sean, if I belittled you on the air. That was not my intent. Well, actually, it was my intention. Brian, you have got a very long list of things for us to cover here today.
Yes.
Almost 2 pages full of notes. Where do we get started on this program?
Well, let's talk about one of our favorite ongoing series of movies and books that we love to talk about on the show all the time, Harry Potter.
Oh, yes.
And there's the new Hogwarts game that's coming out, Hogwarts Legacy, that's coming out here, I think, in the next week or two. People are able to pre-order, and it's going to be releasing pretty soon. But there's been a lot of controversy about this because of the author. J.K. Rowling is a feminist. A old school feminist that believes that women, she advocates, let's just say this way, she advocates for the rights of women. Now, when she starts seeing people born biologically male that are then taking first place and replacing females in their positions of things that biological females are competing for, she'll take a stand against that and say things about it. And so the trans community is just totally anti J.K. Rowling right now. And so you'll see them boycotting the game, people saying, if you buy Hogwarts Legacy, you're anti-trans rights. People saying, yes, I canceled my Hogwarts Legacy purchase. He got too caught up in the hype, and then Rowling reminded me again why I just need to close the book on Harry Potter for good. Just all of these. It's just all of these things that people are just mad at her because she says, if you're going to have Woman of the Year, it should be a biological female. if you're going to have a first place for a competition in sports, it should be for a female. It should be a biological female. And so that's that's her stance. I agree with it, right? Does that make me a person who hates trans people? No. But I think that just as it's important to protect the rights of a trans person, it's also important to protect the rights of a biological woman, because you can stamp all over a person's rights by saying that you're protecting someone else's rights. And I think that's what's happening in this case, which that's more of a segue to another story that we came across. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm reading while you were going through that. I was reading through the comments. Of course, Brian, this article is on the illustrious Kotaku.com.
Kotaku, yes.
And this comment section, Bastions of Truth and Sanity. This comment section is a cesspool of people saying, like, you might, J.K. literally somebody said, it's a pretty tough situation when you've verbatim, not reading it verbatim, but like you've got people that are like actually like in foreign Muslim countries, like you actually get killed if you're transgender or you're gay or something like that. And somebody's response to that is, and J.K. Rowling celebrates every single time this happens. Like this is what these people are so deranged. Do they really believe that J.K. Rowling, who is a liberal, a progressive, is celebrating when a celebrating?
She's not a conservative Republican by any means.
By any means,
she is a feminist.
She's a tried and true feminist.
Yeah, a liberal feminist. Now she's the classical though.
She's not a classical liberal. She's a classical feminist.
No,
she's
but
not a
she's
classical
feminist.
Yes.
No, she's a classical feminist where
she's
she
a
just
Jane Fonda
believes
feminist.
she believes that women should stand up for other women and for their rights. And then when you have, Victoria's, actually, let's say Miss America. Let's go with something that they would be less against. But Miss America coming out and your woman of, your top woman there is a biological male. You have the top swimmer in sports. You have the top, you list it on all of these different competitions and things we're competing. You're starting to have biological males dominate all of them.
I think it's great.
For a period of time. I I mean,
I do.
As if we were allowed to be, the feminists, what a chauvinist is that what they would call a chauvinist?
Yes.
But if we were allowed to be the equivalent of a feminist on the male side, to where we just want to stand up for the rights of men, want to make sure, which of course they would say is horrible. That's hateful. You're not allowed to do that. Yeah. But hey, if that's our goal, like we're dominating it all.
Yeah,
I mean, I just think, testes for the win.
Yeah, I just think all of this. Yeah, exactly. All this goes to show that. I actually am a big fan of this movement. I love the fact that biological men are going into like female sports and crushing the swimming records by like 30, 40, 60 seconds, which is like ridiculous. So I think that's great, and I hope these people continue. And I'm sure their attempts to boycott, just like everything else. It's funny, Brian. I'm sure they're typing these comments on their iPhones or their iPads or their MacBooks that child labor in China made, so they're perfectly okay with that. But damn J.K. Rowling and damn Harry Potter, real moral heroes that we've got here on the left with this one for sure.
Well, okay, so now with a little bit of background. There was a community manager for a game development company that made the mistake of saying on Twitter that they were excited for the release of Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh!
And so what that ended up doing was it triggered a kind of an activist to go through and comb through all of their past tweets and find something that they found offensive.
Yes.
And so they found a tweet that was from 2016 that they felt was very horrible. If you think the number of trans crying about using a bathroom is higher than the pervs using the excuse, you are what is wrong with this world. That was the tweet. That's the extent of the tweet.
Funny enough, this is probably in relation 2016. This would have been the North Carolina bathroom bill, HB2, that was which was the big thing at the time that caused all this controversy. Well,
and she is from North Carolina.
Oh, perfect. Okay, then that's exactly what she's talking about. Yeah.
So this is something. Get
her on the morning show.
So this is something that I was thinking that I tried to follow her, but she's locked it down. We'll see if she accepts it, and maybe I can get you in contact for an interview.
Excellent. All right, sweet. Yeah, I like that.
But this is something where this is all she said, right? Okay, well that wasn't, sure, that can be taken one way or the other. So now they had to go and look at who she follows, and who she follows is not acceptable as well. So this person that goes by Purple Tinker, who is if you could pull up, there's an image of Purple Tinker, who's the founder of BronyCon. This is the person that's been very upset. So Purple Tinker is the one who didn't like the fact that she's excited for Hogwarts Legacy.
Are we sure this is not Unicorn?
This is 100%. This may be his secret identity. He just doesn't want everybody to know, that he is really Purple Tinker.
One interesting thing about this with BronyCon and Purple Tinker is they have a whopping 3,000 followers on Twitter. Real trendsetter in the industry, obviously.
Yes, and so Purple Tinker put together a post.
Tinker, not Twinker.
Coming up,
those are two very different. Those are two very different words.
Right, yes, Purple Tinker, and so if you could pull up the post where this is where they at Limited Run Games to inform them of what kind of a person they have as their community manager.
Yeah.
And so they say the community manager for Limited Run Games, and they put her screen name, is a transphobe who follows a veritable who's who of right-wing transphobic creeps, unless and until she's fired from they said that is hateful.
Whoa! That is crazy.
She is fired from the company permanently. I am not giving them another single dime. And then she put this as the keyword transphobia. So she put together if you can click on these various images and kind of cycle through. So
I will.
They take a screenshot of that post where she says something about, the trans, that there's people that are using it more for being pervs rather than the people that are actually wanting to use it because they identify.
Yeah, so these are the people she was following. Blair White, who is trans, by the way.
Yeah, a trans person who doesn't like this whole pushing trans on kids movement.
Like an actual trans person, yeah. And then following
the libs of TikTok,
unbelievably controversial account of libs of TikTok, who have been who actually revealed themselves as they are. It's actually like a 40-year-old something lady on Tucker Carlson a couple weeks ago. Crazy there. How dare you follow that? Which, by the way, one of the most active accounts on all of social media. And then Ian Miles Chong, who is who I don't like. He's a fake journalist, but nevertheless, Ian Miles Chong on Twitter. So all of this, Brian, is oh my God, they don't even notice Dave Rubin. And by the way, look at how many people this individual has blocked.
Oh,
they have all these accounts blocked. Dave Rubin, who is gay, by the way.
Yes,
but she's an LGBTQ trans.
Well, she hates them. Yeah. I mean, they hate them. I don't know I didn't look at their profile to see what their pronouns are.
Wild. So following people on Twitter is now means to be terminated from employment.
Yes, and so then we get how I learned about this is libs of TikTok, who don't fire me, I follow them because they entertain things that they post.
Yeah,
they said this company fired an employee after a trans activist pressured them to. The employee's crime was simply following me, @StillGray and Miss Blair White on Twitter. I will never give this company a penny, is what they said. And then here is what Limited Runs Games response to this was. LRG respects all persons' opinions. However, we remain committed to supporting an inclusive culture. Upon investigating a situation, an employee was terminated. Our goal as a company is to continue to foster a positive and safe environment for everyone.
This is the worst example. Anybody. Brian, this is the worst example of that we've ever covered on this show. This isn't even a tweet. This is simply following accounts on Twitter. Is termination. And I'll tell you one other thing too. It is very interesting to note, and looking at a couple of the responses in this, this is the first time that I've seen a company get public backlash in their replies to this. Even accounts that are in the gaming industry. You're right. Maybe you are allowed to now. It's interesting to note that you're seeing a whole bunch of people in this industry now even replying back to this and saying,
Yep.
this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you don't ever see this. I mean, the whole at reply, at least from, the sane people, but you can see it looking through this. Now obviously you expect people like Nerdrotic to respond like this, and I don't know who some of these other people are, but I hope this hurts your company significantly. It's not okay to be inclusive. You don't support personal opinions. You're liars. You just lost a customer. You don't support their opinions. A lot of folks aren't going to buy. Not very tolerant. I was a customer, but no more. I mean, you don't typically see this, Brian, on this cancel culture outrage, and This is seeming. I hope this has a significant backlash. And
especially in this economy right now, a lot of these companies are starting to struggle. And I was watching some YouTube videos, and one person was just like, "This company is shooting themselves in the foot in a time when they really need customers where they can get them." In a very non-required, as far as spending your money, you're going to buy eggs, or you're going to buy a limited run game product. You're going to buy some eggs right now, right? For triple the price.
Well, and it's funny because they're a boutique, because I've heard of them before. They make their exact limited runs. They literally do like Game Boy and NES games still on like physical media. But it's funny, Brian, I just went to their Twitter to look at some of their recent posts, and lo and behold, what do I see here? Who can reply? People that at Limited Run Games have mentioned can reply. So they've turned off their public replies, of course, because this is how the left operates. This is they can come out and make a statement that you deserve to lose your job because you follow libs of TikTok on Twitter, and then immediately they cower and run into the corner when they're called out on their bullshit. This is the left. This is the modern left.
Well, and I think that if anybody that's been following the whole Twitter files thing, what you should realize is the way that they were moderating before is any dissenting opinion was being shadow banned, was being blocked, was being rejected, to where now people know I can go and actually reply and give my opinion on something without getting blocked on Twitter. And so you're starting to see, because what they were trying to do was create a sense of, I'm the minority. I'm the now minority of opinion, right? That's what they were trying to create on Twitter, was everyone else thinks this and I don't think that. Like, they want you to step in line is the goal. And I think here now you're starting to see a majority of people actually think like I do. Now that you have the ability to say your opinion, and just look at the replies on these. Before Twitter was taken over, you would have seen, oh, this is so great. I back up this person 100%. This is exactly, Nazis, was what you would have seen in the replies, and you would have seen nothing else. Now look at the replies. Just, this company is getting slammed. People saying, what did the employee actually do? What grounds are this? People are commenting on, there's going to be a heck of a lawsuit. Now, there are things where this is a right-to-work state. Idaho's the same way. North Carolina is a right-to-work state.
Is this a North Carolina company? I think they are.
Yes. They are based out of North Carolina. So, but I bet you that there will be some suits coming in. That doesn't limit their ability to sue.
Well, and it's important
we'll see if
to
this
note,
goes somewhere.
Yeah, and this is right in my wheelhouse with North Carolina law, and obviously right to work and all of that. But then there's discrimination, and whether you are a right to work state or not, it is still illegal to discriminate. And I'll tell you what, if you want some inside baseball, Brian, let me tell you what went on here in the state back in November. Now, the state of North Carolina has a 5-2 Republican-controlled state Supreme Court, has a 13-2 state-controlled appeals court, and has a majority on all of the appellate courts across the state. So, if there was ever a time for, at least here in the Tar Heel state, the great state of North Carolina, for something like this to come forward, there is as friendly of a court system as possible, plus a Republican majority in the North Carolina Senate and a Republican majority in the North Carolina House. So, Yeah, that's this is how this stops one way, Brian, and it's lawsuits, and that's what we haven't seen yet. But you will eventually, because they were making public statement. They said that she was fired because of her Twitter account. That's what they said in their post.
Yeah,
her comments. They didn't provide any of those.
They definitely didn't. They definitely didn't run this by their legal department. I don't think.
I'm sure they don't have a legal department.
Exactly, but they should. They should at this point. They may, if they have enough to be able to hire one. One thing that is interesting, though, is people have combed. Well, they don't have to comb. People already know about the Purple Tinker's history, where they defend having 14-year-olds being able to have sex with adults.
Yeah, of course,
and being able to make that choice. There was a pedophilia scandal at the convention that person ran. All these things are coming up, and people saying, well, you supported pedophilia. You promoted. You can say, well, I didn't. You say, I didn't know about the pedophilia that's happening at the convention. I didn't promote that. But then if you go look at some of your past tweets, you promote pedophilia or minors at the age of 14 having sex.
Well, it's funny because they have a term for this. This is their
transition. This is helping them getting into, being adults in the gay community.
Well, they don't call them pedophiles, Brian. They call them mats. Oh God, what does it stand for? Something
minor attracted person,
right? Yeah, minor attracted something. So yeah,
they don't like that. The label of pedophile.
Oh yeah, of course not, because it is one of the worst things that you can be accused of being in society. There's like a couple of things, like a rapist, a murderer, and a pedophile. Like that's like the creme de la creme of things to be accused of. You know, those things you definitely don't want. So they've just changed it to minor attracted person or something, or MAP or something like that. This is the most egregious example of, it's not even cancel culture. Actually, it's not cancel culture. It's, social terrorism. Like what, we heard from one of the original founders of, what was that studio? Soulbound. The studio that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where the gentleman was fired because of his.
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but
he called it
Soulbound.
No, it wasn't Soulbound. It's social terrorism is the phrase, and so in this case, a company has allowed an individual with about 3,000 followers on Twitter to cause them to fire somebody from their company.
Yep.
Purple Tinker has 3,354 followers on Twitter.
Well, and one thing I want to say, this is one thing where Purple Tinker has now come out and say, I am resolutely against all sexual abuse and all child abuse, and the accusations of pedophilia are libelous and potentially actionable. But the thing is you go look at your past tweets where you're saying 14-year-olds need to be able to have sex, so that they can discover their identity and all this. Why are you commenting on it? Why are you saying that's part of being trans is 14-year-olds doing this? And so I think that just like people can judge, you're wanting them to judge this girl based on her having an opinion. People are going to judge you based on your opinions as well. And then you say, well, this is mean that you're saying these things. They're taking your quotes and things that you said, and they're saying that they don't agree and they find them negative or gross or bad, whatever it is. And then they quote this whole thing about being an at-will. They call it at-will in North Carolina.
It is.
Employment. So perfectly legal, which is right. It is perfectly legal to a point for them to fire her. They can fire her for any reason.
Absolutely. That's one of the great things that this state has.
Age, race, sexual identity, religion, things like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that's going to be put to the test. And I hope it does get put to the test, because there is again, while it is a state where you're not required to provide a reason for termination, there is a complete and total level of discrimination that does take place. It is taking place, does take place, and needs to be called out. And it will eventually be, the couple of things. It's the demise of these companies that are sinking themselves. It will eventually be the what I believe is serious litigation against these individuals. and these companies.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing is these companies thinking that they're doing, because before, when you weren't allowed to have diversity in thought, they thought that this is what was going to keep them the safest. They make decisions based on what they think is the safest bet. But now I think they're going to realize, now that people are allowed to voice their opinions and the truth is allowed to be said, that there will be a change in these companies' ideas of what is allowed and what's not allowed. Treat people equally. If you can have a crazy opinion, by my opinion is crazy, then it needs to go both ways. And here you can see that they're not allowing. People can look at the leader of BronyCon and say, hey, that's crazy to me. And they should be able to say, that lifestyle, that everything they do, that to me just doesn't seem as what I consider normal. But you know what? They look at your lifestyle and they say, well, that's not normal. Whether it's a person who goes to church, Christian, being a person who's conservative, a person who has certain ways of thinking, they view that as not normal, right? And so there has to be a point where I'm okay. That's why I bring it up. I'm a libertarian. You have the right to be crazy if I have the right to be crazy. But it seems like up to this point, it was only one direction. They'd point the finger and be like, well, but you can't, I'm going to point at you, but you can't look back at me. And hopefully that's going to end. If there's going to be bickering, at least let it be honest, draw a line in the sand like the old days and have, a game where there's an honest fight between the two.
Well, and I'll tell you this, and I approach this in my life because of what I do for work. And I encourage other folks to do it as well. And I will continue to say this. It's not even the comments that you make that will get you in trouble. It is simply having the thoughts. Literally following libs of TikTok on Twitter was enough to get this woman fired from her job. So if you genuinely think that you're going to try and skirt around this by watching what you say, you're fooling yourself. And so, Brian, the approach I take, I don't watch what I say. I don't care. It doesn't matter. If there's a reason to fire me, there's a reason to fire me. It doesn't matter. If it needs to be manufactured, which is what this was, they'll find anything. Yeah. So it literally doesn't matter. And I think, and I know it's easier said than done, but more conservatives and more Republicans need to start having this approach. If they don't like you, they are going to fire you, whether you do the right thing or not. So stop they need bowing down to the mob on it, because it literally doesn't matter.
And the thing is, it really needs to come down to, I don't know where I first heard this, today they come for me, tomorrow they come for you. And it comes down to the thinking of Germany. And I bring up Nazi Germany a lot when talking about these things, but hey, they're coming to get my neighbor, I'm all right. At least they're going to get them. Now, look at those guys. They weren't doing everything that I think is right. If you're okay with them going and pulling them out of their house, next thing they're going to do is they're going to come and pull you out of your house. And so this is Martin Niemöller poem. First they came. Here we go. We got someone who actually knows the quote.
No, that's right.
I've heard it at some place.
First they came for you. It's like first they came for you, and I said nothing, and then next they came for me, and there was nobody to say anything or something like that. And that's exactly what this is. And it's because,
and that's the thing. Yep.
And it's because it's never enough. It's always, it's a one-up game. So it's always moving the rung up to the next ladder. For example, we talked about the individual who was fired, Tripwire Interactive, for putting out a tweet about being pro-life. Right? That was one thing. He put out a statement about something. It cost him a company that he busted his ass for 20 years for. Now the ring is now the notch is moved up. Now it's that you follow people on Twitter, and that's enough for grounds of termination. Then the ring will be moved up. Brian, you watch Fox News in your house. That is rides for termination. This person pulled into the parking lot of my company, and I heard that they had a talk radio program on. They were listening to a conservative talk show host in their car. They need to be terminated for that. Right? It never stops until, as the poem goes, there's nobody left to say anything, and then it's you that's under control. So
there's no one left to speak for me. So that's the thing is,
I just sent this lady an email
happening more
for my job, and if that works out, we get in touch with her there, and I get a chance to interview her. I'll also see if she wants to come and chat with us here on the old Infectio podcast. So,
Yeah.
What a sad state of affair. I hate the video game industry, Brian. It is the worst group of people imaginable. It is way worse than the tech industry, and I would make the argument it is one of the worst subsets on the internet. They are the most
it's one of the worst and least
useless individuals in the world.
Least accepting groups.
Oh, yes.
Now, but if you ask them, they'll say they are the most accepting. But the problem is when you only will accept people that are of like mind, that's not diversity. I don't know if they've realized this yet or not.
They haven't. No,
but when you only accept people who think like you do, that's not diversity. Just because they dress different, just because they look different, just because they act different than various types of people, they all have the same thinking. And when you talk about diversity in the workforce and diversity, you need to have diversity in thinking. And the reason that you bring in maybe different diversities of ethnicities and things like that, because that's a good way to get a different diverse way of thinking. Because people that come from different countries, men, women, all these different aspects that make people different will tend to make it so that in the end you have a diverse center of thought, right? Well, if you look at what they've actually done in claiming that they want diversity because it creates a healthy workforce, is they've done the opposite. They've got a huge group of people that are all saying the exact same thing. They may wear bright colors, but that doesn't mean that they actually are diverse. It does. I can't go in there and give my opinion. I've said this before. Why do you think I never pushed forward with my employment with Google? I looked at Google and I worked for Google for over a year, which meant I was fast-tracked if I wanted to go there and actually be a full employee of Google. They kept me on for more than a year, so I had that option, and I never asked to do it because I did not want to be in. I don't want to be working at a place where I could never say my personal opinion, and I felt like ever saying my personal opinion would cause me issues.
Well, we now know it wouldn't have even been saying your personal opinion. It would have been having an opinion on social media, following an account,
or being able to follow people that I find interesting on Twitter.
Yeah.
Coming down to that, there would be people that would complain just looking at my Twitter. And I don't talk politics at work.
Of course not.
I don't. In my personal job, for you, it's your job. But for me, I don't talk politics whatsoever. There are people who know me personally that know probably generally how I feel, but I don't even talk politics with them. If people bring up COVID and things like that, I will stay very neutral on the subject. I won't give them a hard opinion, just because at my work, it's not my, I don't really want to stir the pot, and I know that this goes one way, this whole acceptance thing. And so I'll sit there and listen to what they have to say. I'll think about what they say, but you know what? You're not going to get my opinion because I know that it does not get accepted. Because I may think differently than you. And until I know that I can say my opinion and I'm not attacking you and have it to where you just listen to what I have to say and say, oh, hey, that's an interesting opinion and leave it at that. But that's not been my experience with these sort of things. People, especially you talk about COVID. I don't want to get the vaccine because I think that there's too many chances of heart attacks. I'm a person, as Nikki said at the beginning of the show, very active in sports. I'd be very nervous if I did get the COVID vaccine to be going and playing hockey once, twice a week like I do because of getting my heart rate as high as I do. That would make me scared. Little things like that. I can't say those type of things.
A little myocarditis never hurt anybody, Brian. Don't.
Until you drop dead.
Yeah, well, don't be so negative about it. We'll keep an eye on this phenomenal set of details, and hopefully I'm going to try and get in touch with this individual and see if we can nail down an interview. That'd be cool. Really sad state of affairs.
Yes, it is. Well, let's talk about another company that's shooting themselves in the foot.
Sure, I love it.
We want to keep going that direction.
Maybe we should
about Dungeons and Dragons.
We should change our name to Infection, end of the company podcast or something. Just talk about all these companies that are just trying their
killing themselves
to kill themselves. Yes, please. All right, what do we got with the lovely folks over at D&D?
Well, let's talk about, so with D&D, let's talk about some things that are happening that the community inside of D&D are kind of pissed about, and let's talk about then after kind of why I think they're doing this.
Sure.
So Dungeons and Dragons, which is Wizards of the Coast, they are making it so, because what Dungeons and Dragons does is they'll have different editions of rules that you're supposed to follow. It'll have everything about all the characters, their backstories, just everything that you're supposed to base a D&D session on. You get out of these books, and it will kind of set up the world that you're basing this out of. And so they've gone through, and they say that under the terms of this new OGL 1.1, that they are making it to where you're not allowed to use any of the old stuff, right? You have to be using all the new rules. You can't have anything that's based off of old stuff. Now that they're kind of concerned because they're saying it, well, look at all these people that have made content and all this for old things. You know, they're trying to be anti-competitive. There's all these books on the shelves of stores, Kickstarters, all these things that's going to affect. But I'm looking at more of, well, why would they do something like this? Why would they make a license and make it to where it's retroactively saying you can't use anything before now? Well, let's look at some changes that Wizards of the Coast has been making lately. So remember we talked a while ago, there was a race of monkeys, kind of magical monkeys, that they took out of the game. Well, they changed from the game because they thought it was racist.
Yes.
That was kind of the start of this. Well, now D&D is replacing the word race, which is a very pivotal part of how you create a character and everything in D&D. And so they're removing the race from the whole thing. They're going to be doing species. And they're not returning to the word race at all. And they're starting to become woke in all of their D&D things with the new additions, which for me, that's more of my opinion of why they want to say, well, now you can't have anything that's prior to this edition, so that you cannot have anything that talks about race. You cannot have anything that has any of the characters that they deem inappropriate. You know, and they're kind of locking you into the newest play set of rules. And then they're calling this 1D&D. You know, this is the new rule set, 1D&D, which kind of should have been an indicator to the people, because this is the beginning of December. They're wanting to have 1D&D, where now that's the core cool rule set that you're not allowed to deviate from.
Now, Brian, I know this is going to come as a shock to you. This actually makes sense, and let me tell you why. Not because I agree with changing the word race to species. I don't particularly care. Mm-hmm. But for the individuals that play D&D that are painting with a broad brush, but they are, I would say, overwhelmingly 85, maybe even 90+% of them align very heavily with this ideology. And for Wizards of the Coast or Wizard Coast, whatever their group is, this makes sense. They're playing into their audience based. So to me, they're just getting, they just have a feedback loop from their own deranged audience. That this is the reality of what they do. Want.
They said the term species was chosen in close coordination with multiple outside cultural consultants.
There you go. Yeah.
So they've got these companies. There's companies that come in and they will coach companies on how to be more what they'll call it forward thinking.
Yeah, it's a racket. It's a great gig. I wish I would have been more. I wish I would have been more ahead of this.
Isn't it Sarkozian or somebody like that did this for game companies?
Yeah, I could have made a fortune doing this. But if you've ever been to a local board game store and or gone to like a local D&D meetup, I haven't been to a D&D meetup, but I've been to the local board game. When I first moved here, I went to I was trying to meet people. I didn't know anybody, and I went to a couple of like open game sessions at the local board game store, and I was the odd man out, based just by. And because of and it's not just me assuming that that's where these individuals stand. It's that they've got, a water bottle like this, and it's stickers on it that say BLM and coexist and, fuck the police. So it's like, that's like their whole identity. So, and those are the people that are playing these games, a majority of the people playing these games. So for D&D, this is the perfect mix. And for, normal people that obviously understand that the word race in a mythical fake board game that's been around since the 80s, is not talking about skin color. They'll continue to play with their old rules or just give D&D the middle finger and move on to something more normal.
Yeah. Well, and here's something that was announced here in the past week.
Sure.
Wizards of the Coast has now canceled 5 video game projects of upcoming games. So they have on their acts 5 video game projects. So that means that they laid off 15 people. And what they do is they're scaling back its plans for video games, and so with that, it results in the shift of less than 15 people being laid off, but can apparently apply. People can apply for these. There's other roles now Wizards of the Coast can go apply for. But yeah, this is something they're wanting it to kind of go towards their more long-term portfolio to focus on games which are strategically aligned with developing our existing brands and those which show promise in expanding or engaging our audience in new ways. So,
yeah, well,
we'll see if this continues to be something that's talked about. I mean, with their D&D has been around for so long, and you would never think it would be woke. And I keep saying, this is a place where you escape, where you have something that doesn't have to totally align with reality. And here they're trying to make it to where it's as woke as the reality that they want to have, and I think it's going to end up hurting them in the long run.
And what's weird about it is it's not even that they are, but it's not even that they're being overly woke with the things that they're pushing. It's that they're just making meaningless changes to the game for no reason, like changing the word species for race does not have any meaningful impact or change in the game whatsoever. Like it doesn't change literally anything about it. Yet to them,
like those characters they got rid of were the Hosen, right? These were these Hosen characters. They were said because they were a race, just like I talked about it before, and it was a race just like in the Planet of the Apes series, where these Planet of the Apes they became smart because they were being used as slaves, right? And they were doing things to make them smarter, and then they rose up and overtook the whole world and got rid of. Sorry if you haven't watched Planet of the Apes, ruining the ending for you, but ended up taking over the whole world. The Hosen were ones where they were slaves, but they were very smart, magical. It wasn't viewed in the lens of them being correlated to any real American version of slavery and black people and all this.
Not.
That wasn't any part of it.
It's a board game, of course not. How would it be connected to anything going on in real life? It is
They were creating an interesting race of people. And if you're going to have animals that are slaves, wouldn't you do the smartest animals that you could that had the ability? Just they say that we came from apes and things like this. Well, wouldn't that be the species that you would teach to be able to, do work? I mean, that's what the whole Planet of the Apes movie is based on, that concept. And I don't think that the movie was based off of racism.
Brian, I am beyond. I'm just beyond it at this point. I don't know. Let me step back for a second. I don't know how society continues down this path. Honest to God, I don't. I'm not trying to be a doomer or a doomsdayer or burn the whole thing to the ground kind of guy. But honest to God, I don't see how this stuff continues. I mean, it is engulfed every single facet of life. Yep. You cannot escape it. It literally doesn't matter what
you can't
you
even
do,
escape into D&D anymore to kind of lose track of all the
sure as hell can't watch
can't watch
TV. I'll tell you what is interesting. Couple of interesting things now. You watch Yellowstone at all?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm surprised that show is that is the most popular show on television right now. That show is anti all of this. And I'm surprised that show has not been attacked yet. Kevin Costner is the lead in that.
Yeah.
He is a Republican. That's not much of a question there. The guy that plays Rip in that is now doing a commercial for the Wounded Warrior Project and Tunnel to Towers, talking about his support of law enforcement and the military. So it's just interesting that in all parts of society, this is what's going on. Yet the most popular television show right now is about a bunch of badass cowboys, running around
and a strong female lead as well.
An incredibly strong female lead, just kind of doing whatever they want, spitting in the face of environmental groups, and it's just very, very interesting to see those two things exist at the same time. But I don't know how this stuff can continue.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is we're in a crazy time. All right. Do we have time for one more thing before we?
We got about 8
here.
minutes or so. Sure.
Okay. Do you want to talk about Russia or Microsoft? What's your preference?
We did a lot of the political stuff. Let's talk about Microsoft a little bit.
All right. Well, let's do something a little lighthearted at first.
Yeah.
The person that wrote the poem at the ending of Minecraft, is now wanting it to be free again. Because the
game
they wrote it originally. No, the poem at the end.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The poem writer put it in the public domain so players could do what they liked with the narrative. And but they said that they got high and made it free. I don't know what that has to do with it, but this person was not happy, that Microsoft, because they made it originally, I think was it Persons is his last name?
Yeah, Notch. Yeah.
Notch, yeah. And so now it's a part of the public domain, so people can use it. It's free to play like Shakespeare in the Bible, and a lot of less glamorous books. So if you want to use that poem, it's no longer locked to Minecraft. I don't know why that's so crazy, but this guy, I guess he didn't probably mad about all the things happening with unions and everything else. Wanted to take it away from Microsoft.
Interesting.
Now, speaking of unions, Microsoft has been running some pro-union ads, and now, of course, this is PC Gamer saying this in a push to acquire Activision Blizzard. Trying to say, hey, we are pro-union.
Of course.
And so this has been something. But we talked last week, and let's just kind of put this in there. Remember, I had mentioned that this company that Blizzard purchased, and then just before the purchase was complete, Proletariat, is that what they are?
Something like that, yeah.
They had decided they were going to form a union. They had outside people come in and talk to them and convince them to do certain things prior to the acquisition, going in full force. And now workers at Blizzard say that management is refusing its union and is forcing to them go through the normal unionization process. So it can't be that now that they've purchased the company, we can just say before the purchase and everything is complete, hey, we now have a union and you have to take this because you don't quite have 100% control of our company yet.
I mentioned that last week that either you can't, once you're under an agreement to buy something, you can't just all of a sudden change big parts of it, including literally the workforce, and then expect that to just go forward. If I were if I were Blizzard, in this case Activision Blizzard, I might try and just get out of the whole deal if possible.
Yeah,
because this is going to be way
you bought
more
this company that's probably
worth.
A struggling company. It allowed these people to keep their jobs most likely and stay in the industry, and then they pull something like this. In their statement is everyone deserves a union. Really?
You deserve it.
What about
hold on. You deserve a union. Why?
What they feel like they're being abused in the workplace. They don't have all the rights to contraception and abortion that they feel like they need. You can do the list of the far left talking points that they do whenever they talk about and bring on some testing portion of the company, because this is the first one that was really not just a a testing unit. This had actual
QAs,
programmers in it. Yeah. And so, yeah, they're saying that this is, their actions are right out of the union busting playbook used by Activision and so many others. Management held a town hall last week, which disappointed many of our workers. The meeting was inappropriate due to its.
Yeah. You can never appease. You can try and host a town hall meeting. You can try and be open and try and be transparent, and it's never enough. This is again why I go back to it. It's never enough, and it doesn't matter if the idea is made up. If it's made up in their head, then nothing you do matters. And this is why, exactly why I said earlier on, months and months ago, that Microsoft should not try and pull any of this bullshit with trying to get their Activision Blizzard thing going forward. Don't bow down to it. Don't try and appease these organizations that are going to try and bully you out of it. They don't care. They don't care. It is a zero-sum game. It does not matter. I mean, I deal with this in so many different facets of my life, Brian. People have their minds made up that you're a this or you're a that. Nothing you do changes it. Nothing you do has an impact. Nothing matters. Microsoft is running freaking ads in the Washington Post, the most progressive rag news outlet in the United States, about how they're looking forward to bringing workers' rights up to a certain level. And Brian, it's still not enough. Yep. It's still not enough. What the hell? This goes back to what we were talking about in the pre-show. What do these people want? And the answer is nothing. They're not actively fighting for anything. They're just outraged and bitch and complain about anything. They're not actually looking for something.
Well, and one interesting thing, here's kind of towards the end of their statement, it says, we can decide for ourselves if we want a union. We don't need help from the management. We need and deserve respect and neutrality. We want to do right by our team and collaborate with management without contention. So, yeah.
Why a physical ad in the Washington Post? Well, that part's pretty simple, according to whatever jackass at PC Gamer wrote this. The FTC is based in Washington, D.C. Yeah, wow, no kidding. No shit, Sherlock. The Federal Trade Commission's in the District of Columbia. The Post's hometown. Buying ads to get exposure to regulatory and government employees in the city is a pretty common tactic among government contractors. If you've ever been to D.C., you've seen them. I've always found the ones for military contractors particularly surprising. So again, no good deed goes undone.
Yeah, and so these are for me, as you said last week, if they're going to be like this, like why would you bring on companies like this? Why would you hire people that are actively fighting against your company? I mean, I understand there were industries and there are industries possibly where unions were important, especially during the Industrial Revolution.
Absolutely.
And if you look at 100 years ago and 100 plus years ago, where kids were working in coal mines and they were, being put through incredible situations that were dangerous, where maybe minorities were not being treated equally compared to people that were not, that were white. Those were times when they had a role, when change was happening. Well, I think now we hit a point where things were equal, but then you're now getting a split of not equal enough is what they're really pushing for, and when they start trying to turn the tables and push it the other direction, when you get it to the top of the hill, like you're supposed to try to get it to the peak where you feel like everything's right in the world, but they're trying to push it down to the other side, and you're just going to be in the exact same position, but the person that is the person being stepped on is just going to be someone that's different than you. Correct. You were the person that was different originally, and there were people that treated you different because of that. And now it's going to turn the tables where you're going to be like, "Hey, yeah, they deserve that." Well, that was the whole thing you fought for, was to make it to where that didn't happen, and now you're going to push it again to where you just want to be the person with the stick, is what it comes down to. I mean, that's what it really seems like. It has nothing to do with fairness, because if you truly wanted fairness, you would want everyone to be equal. And if you look at the situations that you have the ability to work under in the United States of America and the conditions that they're allowing you, we have it so good here compared to so many other countries. And the fact that they're ignoring that and not even realizing that here we have so much flexibility in our work, and the fact that you're complaining about some of these things Yet you're not fighting for the rights of female workers in foreign countries. You're not fighting for the safety of, you're buying your iPhone and not complaining the fact that it was built by possibly, a 10-year-old that's being forced to work and not allowed to go to school. And yet you have no problems with that, but you're worried about some of these things that you put on these lists for your rights of your workers. That's what they have no interest. I've told you before. Do you remember when I told you about the whole, the recycling push that happened? They kept pushing for recycling. And I'm a part of a organizational group that does a lot of good in the community. And we made a lot of money that we then would turn around and donate to causes based on recycling. Well, the cities came and took that over and made it to where we couldn't really compete anymore. So we had to shut them all down. But in that, we got to learn a lot about what actually happened with recycled products. And most people didn't realize that when you go and put your things on the curb and you shove them over there and do all the recycling, what they're actually doing, people think, oh, they're turning it into another water bottle. They're taking that. What they were doing is they're batching it up and compressing it all together. They're putting it on a ship and they're sending it over to China. Now, China changed their rules, but what they were doing, 10 years ago was they were putting them on these ships, putting them over to China, and then China was using them as fuel to burn in their factories. All the plastic that you were saying by me throwing this in this container here is saving the earth. No, they were burning it in a factory for heat, to be able to run their machinery. And then it's going in the sky, and that's why there was the incredible smog, which then China realized was killing their country. And so they made rules. You want to know why they don't really push for you to recycle anymore? Is because China won't accept them unless, like, your plastic, for instance, are a grade 1 plastic. Then they'll accept your plastic. If there's anything that's grade 2 and below that's mixed into a certain percentage, they spot check them. They'll reject the whole batch. And so your companies now, they throw away all the glass. Your local cities, they get glass, they crush it up and they throw it in the dirt. Your plastics, most of them probably go to the landfill now because they can't guarantee, because people don't actually pay attention to what level of plastics they're doing. Your recycling means nothing. Yeah, you've got to think up here, which has SpongeBob SquarePants says, "We did it, Patrick. We saved the city as it's burning."
Yeah,
that's what your recycling was doing.
I used this last week as well. I have this printed out in the studio at work because it is so accurate. It so accurately describes so many of the problems that we're dealing with. Brian, I look forward to these continued conversations. I look forward to continuing to hammer this home and just talking about this lunacy, because I think one of the biggest problems right now, specifically in our side of it, the video game side of it, is there just isn't enough exposure on it. It's being talked about in certain places, but I don't believe a majority of people who are video gamers realize the lunacy and the nonsense that's going on within the industry that they likely love and care so much about, like I used to. Now at this point, I could care less. I mean, this industry has just totally ruined my morale. I could care less about it. In terms of like the fan that I used to be, which is really sad. But that's what they've decided, the path they've decided to go down, and that's what we're dealing with. So,
hopefully when they get to the end of the road, they realize they're really lonely there, and they'll come back and actually trying to create a product and serve the majority of people. Trying to create a product that doesn't have to be offensive or derogatory towards any group of people or one person. Just provide entertainment. I mean, all of these places are supposed to be providing entertainment, but the problem is when they go and start becoming so political about all of this, they lose track of the entertainment, and everything becomes offensive. I mean, just look at what Disney's done. The video game industry is doing the same thing to the point of it's not appetizing anymore. Well, a lot of these games, when they're all based on these things, they're not appetizing.
And Disney is paying the price for that right now. There's a report that they're going to have to sell off ESPN and ABC this year because they literally can't afford to keep it, because they're just they're just so over debted and just don't have that. They need to spin off properties because of their poor management and their decisions. So it's a sad state of affairs, but it's completely self-inflicted. So I don't care.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we head on out of here?
No, sir.
All right. Well, you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, and Truth Social. You can check out my blog, biteoftech.com. Of course, that's with an I. Or you can go check out our website, infectionpodcast.com, and go to the upper right-hand side and join our server on Discord. And if you do that, we've got a news channel, perfect place if you think there's maybe some of the craziness we talked about today. You see something like that, we don't catch everything. Help us with finding some of these stories and things that are happening in the industry. Post a link in there, and we'll review that before the live show. Also, we have 11 ARC servers going, a Conan Exile server, so if you want to play some games, jump onto one of our servers. We'll get enhanced gather rates and things like that, so it's easy to get going and really experience the game. And it's a good way to contact us individually if you want to just hang out, maybe chat with some of the community. If you want to watch the show, you can do that through Twitch and YouTube. Or if you're going to listen to it, down the lower right-hand side, a lot of platforms and devices and things that you can use to listen. We do that after the show is finished being recorded, and then that means that the show notes are also being posted at that same time. So you can go and click. There's an audio and video player in there, and links for everything that we discussed. So maybe there's a video that we showed during the live recording that maybe you only got to hear. Just jump on there and you can play that video and catch it without having to rewatch the whole video. And there's a lot of different source materials. Some things we don't maybe even get into individually, but they're supporting material for things that we talked about. If you want to support us, you can do that up top, which is the support icon, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, absolutely. Brian, thank you very much as always. Greatly appreciated, and thanks to all of our continued supporters that continue to support the program. I think it's safe to say that we probably aren't going to ever be allowed to go to PAX again. So we might have to find some other sorts of events and things that we can get ourselves into, because I think it's safe to say, Brian, with the inclusivity of some of these groups, I'm not sure that they would be very inclusive to our ideas, especially
not open to our diversity of thought.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, claim one thing, do another. Brian, thanks as always, my friend. Greatly appreciate it. We'll see you coming up next week. If you are looking for more of the political itch, I recommend you check out the Wilmington's Morning News podcast. Yeah, it covers some local North Carolina issues, but a lot of national stuff as well. You can find that by searching for it in your favorite podcast app or heading on over to my website, nickcraig.com. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you sticking with us here on Infection. You can check out our full show notes. Maybe you missed a portion of the program or want to see some of those very fiery screenshots. You can do all of that by visiting our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.